30 years ago, Burkina Faso had no electricity, no clean water, no voice at the international negotiation table. Its people grew cotton under the blazing 45 degrees Celsius sun, yet earned less than the cost of a single meal in Paris. White cotton, calloused hands, and silence. But today, a historic 78 billion CFA agreement has been signed. Not through France, not with IMF approval, no permission slip from the European Union. Just two nations, once labeled poor, putting pen to paper, deciding for themselves. Why did Bangladesh, a country not known for wealth, become Burkina Faso's historic trade partner? How can a nation without aircraft carriers shake the foundations of global trade? If you believe freedom doesn't need to be approved, comment freedom below. Like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss what comes next. The truth has only just begun to unfold. On the morning of the 5th of June, 2025, under the scorching sun of Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré stepped out from the presidential palace. In his hands was not a report to the World Bank, but a document never before seen in Burkina Faso's history, a 78 billion CFA trade agreement signed directly with Bangladesh. No French representatives, no European Union seals, not a single stamp from the IMF, just two signatures and one declaration. From now on, we trade as equals, not as beggars seeking approval. So the question is, turning down Western aid to shake hands with a nation once as poor as your own, is that courage or recklessness? Leave a comment. Would you choose Traore or another soft rescue package from the West? Subscribe now. Part 3 will uncover the moment that left all of Europe stunned. This story didn't begin in a boardroom. It began in a cracked field in Kaya where people grew cotton by hand. No pesticides, no tractors, no market. Every harvest season, they sold 100 kilograms of cotton and earned less than enough to buy their child a pair of shoes. Why? Because there was an invisible, yet powerful chain of middlemen known as the global market. For over 40 years, the price of Burkina Faso's cotton was set by France. The Katonchik Group, backed by Parisian banks, imposed a price ceiling, 40 cents per kilo. Cotton left Africa through the port of Abidjan, landed in textile factories across Europe, rebranded as 100% organic cotton, and resold for up to 100 times the price. In all this time, the farmers never knew they were victims of a financial game. But Traore knew. From the moment he took office, he ordered an investigation into the entire supply chain. And what he uncovered was staggering. 98% of Burkina Faso's cotton exports were priced by a committee based in France. Just 12 people, sitting in a glass tower in Paris, setting wholesale prices for millions across Africa without ever asking them. And the question is, who gave them that power? Traore rejected the system. He summoned the ministers of agriculture, foreign affairs, and justice. He wasn't interested in negotiating the rules. He wanted to rewrite them. You can't beat the game, he said, if you keep playing by their rules. So he looked not to Washington, not to Beijing, but to Bangladesh. They didn't meet in Davos, not in Geneva. They met quietly at an unofficial conference in Nairobi. No red carpets, no press, no photo ops. Only one question was asked between the two delegations. If we've both been exploited, why not walk out of the shadows together? Bangladesh, once labeled the cheap sweatshop of the world, understood exploitation all too well. Every year, it imports over 3 million tons of raw cotton to fuel its $45 billion textile industry. But for decades, it too had to buy from the West at manipulated prices. Burkina Faso had the cotton but was underpriced. Bangladesh needed the cotton but was overcharged. Two nations bound by suffering finally joined hands through one document, the South-South Trade Sovereignty Pact, and Traore declared, "From now on, our cotton will no longer pass through Paris, not through London. We'll sell directly to those who need it, no more price approval from anyone." The moment the deal was signed, Bangladesh tripled its purchase price, which meant every farmer now earned 60 cents instead of 20 per kilogram, a leap not only in income, but in dignity. But the agreement didn't stop there. The two nations established a direct shipping channel from Burkina Faso to the port of Chittagong, technology transfer in drip irrigation and organic pest control, student exchange and agricultural engineering training, joint military peacekeeping support, and most symbolically, mutual visa, free travel for all citizens. As a gesture of trust, Bangladesh also donated 100 tractors to Burkina Faso's farmer cooperatives. And when the news leaked, Western media erupted. CNN labeled Traore a dangerous leader dismantling global trade order. BBC wrote, "An alliance between two poor countries may destabilize the global supply chain, but the question remains, if a deal without bombs, oil, or armies causes panic in the West, then where exactly is the problem?" When asked why he chose Bangladesh instead of returning to the IMF, Traore replied simply, "We don't need to be rescued. We just need a partner who respects us." That quote spread like wildfire across African social media. Millions shared it. Hundreds of thousands commented, and the questions poured in. If Burkina Faso can do it, why can't Ghana? If a country without warships can sign a $78 billion deal, what are the superpowers really afraid of? While the West convened emergency meetings, the first bales of cotton quietly left Burkina Faso and arrived directly at factories in Dhaka. No middlemen, no banking gatekeepers, no donor approval, just two things: trust and action. If a country once exploited through cotton now uses that same cotton to fight back, who's truly smarter? If you were a cotton farmer in Burkina Faso, would you sell to a French conglomerate or a nation that once suffered like you? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because Part 4 reveals the secret reactions from Paris and Brussels that they never wanted you to know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you believe. Africa doesn't need permission to be free. When the first bales of cotton arrived at the port of Chittagong, no one in Europe's financial circles saw it as the dawn of a new geopolitical reconstruction, but Traore did. He understood that trade isn't just numbersits about sovereignty, and to seal that truth, he elevated the agreement with Bangladesh into a comprehensive pact no longer just about cotton, but a genuine South-South shared economy, independent and non-aligned. In July 2025, just 1 month after signing, a high-level delegation from Bangladesh arrived in Burkina Faso. They didn't ride limousines. They didn't stay in five-star hotels. They didn't meet behind closed doors like Western officials. They walked out into the fields, met farmers, held the soil in their hands, and asked each one, "What do you need? How can we help without undermining your dignity?" And the results spoke for themselves. Quarter-cents tractors delivered, 710 solar-powered water pumps installed, 68,000 tons of bio-fertilizer distributed directly to co-ops, no intermediaries, no banks, no service fees. Everything contracted directly with local authorities under the watchful eyes of villagers. But it went deeper. Bangladesh didn't just become a buyer, they became learners. They sent 200 agricultural engineers to learn Burkina Faso's dry land farming techniques, especially ancient water retention practices and homemade ash-based compost. This is not one-way aid. It is an exchange of two forgotten knowledges, Traore said. At the acceptance ceremony, he delivered a line that left the region breathless. If weathos once labeled weak can learn from each other, then who is truly weak? Then came another shocking move. Bangladesh granted permanent visa-free access to all Burkinabe citizens. Traore answered instantly. Burkina Faso reciprocated. Two nations, 10,000 kilometers apart, became borderless partners. The West began to panic. France's foreign ministry denounced Burkina Faso for flouting the international trade order and weakening strategic stability in the region. The European Commission warned they might reassess humanitarian aid programs. IMF stayed silent, but French media leaked an internal memo. If Burkina Faso's model spreads to 5 West African nations, French banks could lose over USD 12 billion annually. Meanwhile, in Brussels, a closed-door meeting of senior trade advisors took place. In the leaked memorandum, one sentence was highlighted in red. If African nations learn to trade without us, the EU value chain will collapse. Back in Ouagadougou, Traore convened a public conference between Burkinabe farmers and representatives from Bangladesh's textile industry. No scripted speeches, no VIP seating, just candid discussion about quality, pricing, harvest processes. A farmer named Isaka stood up and said, "I've grown cotton for 30 years. Today, I'm speaking to the people who will wear the clothes made from my cotton." The translator faltered. Bangladeshi delegates left their seats, came forward, and embraced Isaka. "I've never met the person who grew the fabric of my country, but now I have." The room erupted in applause. This was no longer commerce. This was rebirth. A connection, human to human. No stronger side, no weaker side. Only two nations choosing to decide their own futures. Under pressure from domestic lobbies, the French government escalated. They issued financial warnings, downgrades Burkina Faso's credit rating, and the EU announced a cut of €50 million in aid. Traore responded with a smile. "We will earn €500 million a year from agri-cooperation. You keep your money." A journalist asked, "Aren't you afraid? Losing aid, losing credit ratings, being called reckless?" Traore answered, I fear something worse. Looking into the farmer's eye sand, telling them, stay poor, just to keep your A+ rating from people who've never been with you. Bangladesh then pledged further cooperation, build mini textile mills in Burkina Faso, send medical and engineering students for exchange programs, partner on disaster relief, propose a freight rail route from Burkina Faso through Ghana to the seaport. No UN approval, no donor agencies, only trust. Why does a small nation like Bangladesh, labeled poor, choose to empower Burkina Faso, while the superpowers only offer loans and conditions? Would you choose partnership with someone who understands you, or bow before aid from those who doubt your capacity? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe Africa doesn't need permission to be respected, hit like, subscribe, and share now. At the end of June 2025, before the rainy season had even reached the Sahel, the unthinkable happened. A land once cracked and barren became the largest cotton producer in West Africa. No UN project, no IMF involvement, not a single cent of aid from Paris. Just one thing, trust. And 78 billion CFA francs spent as Burkina Faso itself decided. Rather than wasting funds on international conferences, celebrations, or capital monuments, Traore's government did the near impossible. 100% of the budget from the Bangladesh deal went straight to rural communities. Breakdown of results. 400 tractors distributed across more than 150 farmer cooperatives, 239 motorbikes for agricultural technicians across 12 northern provinces, 710 water pumps installed in cotton-intensive regions, 68,000 tons of biofertilizer distributed for free with no government intermediaries. Each cooperative included local villagers, agricultural officers, students from agricultural colleges, everyone involved. Why no processing fees? Wide. No fuel charges. No unnamed levies. The result? In less than 90 days, cotton yields tripled. For the first time, Burkina Faso reached 1 million tons of raw cotton in a single quarter. Export value crossed $1 billion, an all-time record. But the most remarkable part was the return of the youth. Instead of fleeing to France, instead of risking their lives to Libya, young people began returning to their villages to rebuild the future. More than 2,000 agricultural students received land for experimentation. One young woman, Awa Sanu, age 23, once dreamed of a French visa. Now, she heads a cotton cooperative in Tenkodogo with 14 members, all under 30. We don't need visas to have a future. We only need not to be disrespected. Across villages, the youth began to innovate. Manual cotton fiber separators, low-cost greenhouse models, water filters using activated carbon from cotton husks. A network of farmer engineers was forming for the first time in Burkina Faso. Bangladesh responded with new commitments. Build mini textile mills in Bobo Dioulasso and Kodagu. Send 200 students in textile design to Burkina Faso. Launch mobile clinics, staffed by joint medical teams from both countries. In the West, France issued warnings of potential debt risks in the South-South model. The U.S. labeled Traore a populist who ignores global norms. The EU leaked a plan to impose tariffs on cotton from Burkina Faso. Traore's response was bold. If succeeding without you is non-compliant, then whose standard is it and who does it serve? Across Burkina Faso, people began calling this movement La Révolution Blanche, the White Revolution. White cotton, clean fields, and calloused hands, not from despair, but from hope. On village gates, new signs began to appear. No Paris, no NGOs. We have each other. In Niger, Mali, Togo, farmers began gathering, asking if they could do it, why can't we? In Ghana, Nigeria, students began asking their teachers, why do we learn how to write scholarship applications, but not how to sell cotton without middlemen? For the first time in centuries, Africa began speaking to itself. No translators, no permission required. The West panicked. They had no idea how to stop a revolution with no protests, no weapons, no war, only cotton and trust. Why are the young, once dreaming of escape, now returning home to grow cotton? If a billion-dollar future can begin in a dry field, then who is really the developing country? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe Africa doesn't need a passport to have dignity, then like, subscribe, and share this now. In early July 2025, inside a 17th floor office in Brussels, a confidential memo was leaked. It never reached the press. No headlines, no breaking news. It was circulated only internally among EU trade advisors. At the heart of the document, one line stood out circled in red, followed by 3 exclamation marks. If Traore's model spreads to 10 West African nations, the EU could lose over 80 billion euros within 5 years. Soon after, internal emails between European cotton executives hacked and exposed shook the industry. A Texeuro board member wrote, "Burkina Faso is doing the unthinkable trading without permission. If they succeed, the entire pricing system will collapse." Another responded, "We must suppress this momentum. Use international quality standards if we have to pressure them." Immediately, the International Textile Standards Commission in Switzerland issued a new regulation: cotton producing countries must demonstrate supply chains with independent international oversight. Translation: If Western institutions are not in control, your product is labeled non-transparent. Bangladesh responded furiously. Their Minister of Trade declared, "This is not about quality. This is about power." They simply cannot accept that the poor can stand tall without anyone holding their hand. But then came a second leak, the one that truly shook the continent. A senior advisor at France's Ministry of Finance wrote in a private G20 email, "If African nations learn to cooperate without Paris or Washington, 500 years of indirect control will end in one generation." Across major European investment banks from Citibanker to Société Générale Internal risk analysis were made public. Risk of losing access to cheap raw materials, risk of collapse in low-cost fashion supply chains, risk of growing regional autonomy. All because of one bold action. Burkina Faso dared to sell cotton without intermediaries. Then another quiet shockwave. Just 2 weeks after the Bangladesh deal, India, Indonesia, Cuba, and Algeria quietly sent trade delegations to Ouagadougou. No speeches, no cameras, just one goal: to study how Traore achieved what an entire continent was told was impossible. This is no longer a trade deal. This is a warning to the old world, and a call to action for the new one. If a 78 billion CFA deal causes panic in Europe, who's really dependent on whom? If you were the leader of an African nation, would you keep signing with the IMF, or finally listen to those forgotten, just like you? Comment your thoughts below. If you believe that Africa was not born to serve someone else's profits, then like, subscribe, and share this video now. Burkina Faso is not a superpower. It does not have an aircraft carrier fleet, no permanent seat at the United Nations, no global media empire to shape public opinion. But in the middle of 2025, it did something that wealthier nations never dared. It rewrote its destiny, not with guns, not through protests, but with a fair contract. The treaty between Burkina Faso and Bangladesh never made it to Reuters or Bloomberg, but it was etched into the collective memory of millions of Africans, because it proved one simple truth: we do not need to be rescued. We only need to be trusted. In cotton villages, children no longer carry water under the 40 degrees Celsius sun. They sit in classrooms learning how to operate solar-powered tractors. They study math to calculate yields and market prices. They learn science to craft biofertilizer from organic waste. Schools no longer teach them how to write scholarship applications. They now teach them how to create opportunity for themselves. The first university dedicated to South-South cooperation was built in Kaya, named the Thomas Sankara Institute, the School of Dignity. There, students study how to negotiate trade without intermediaries, international law from a post-colonial lens, drought-resistant farming techniques, community-based cooperative management. From a nation once ignored, Burkina Faso has become a living experiment for a new global order, one where smaller nations collaborate without a global roundtable dominated by former empires. In Togo, students host forums titled "The Path Without the IMF." In Mali, cooperatives study the Burkina cotton model. In Ghana, the question echoes: if they did it without aid, what are we still waiting for? This revolution has no official name, no logo, no foreign grant, just one thing: a belief in self-determination. On social media, young Africans post photos of cotton fields with captions, "We are not your humanitarian exhibit. We are the future." Bangladesh, once forgotten now, stands as a symbol of true cooperation. And Burkina Faso, once branded a development bottleneck, has become the answer. At the final review of Phase 1 of the treaty, Traore did not give a long speech. He simply raised a board that read, "We have begun. Who will follow? No flags, No slogans. Just a question, one that rang out like a bell across the continent. But the answer does not lie with governments alone. It does not lie with the state. It lies within you, within me, within us, the people who once believed we could do nothing but wait. Because every time you share this story, a new brick is laid in the foundation of a new world. Every comment you leave is a declaration. I do not believe in helplessness. I believe in rising. If you were a child raised in those cotton fields, what would you tell your own child about the day Burkina Faso rewrote history? If you were in that signing room, would you choose, change, or return to the IMF? If the whole world turned away and only you remained, what would you do to keep this fire alive? Write the future, starting with a comment below. Like, subscribe, and share if you believe. Freedom does not need permission. It only needs a beginning.